This is an open letter to Mr. Dave Smith. Hello, sir. How are you? Hope everything is fine. I saw your interview on Tucker Carlson and it was very interesting. Mr. Dave Smith is a comedian, and the interview was very interesting. A lot of great stuff came out. However, one part that I couldn't wrap my head around, it was the part that you mentioned. Maybe it's not a bad idea for Robert Kennedy to excuse himself and endorse Mr. Trump. Yes, that's an option. However, another option would be if Mr. Trump, out of patriotism, drops out and endorses Mr. Robert Kennedy. That would be, a very big if. You know, it would be, you know, that's like Trump voting against himself. Expecting Trump to drop out and endorse Kennedy, it's like Trump voting against himself. Has Trump ever voted against himself? You know, unless there are some, you know, deep issues, you usually don't vote against yourself. Nobody votes against themselves unless there are very deep scars. So Trump would never vote against himself, and considering that Trump is a rich guy from a rich world, and you can see that he would never consider dropping out in favor of Kennedy because that would be voting against himself, and he has always been rich and wealthy and healthy, knock on wood. But here's the thing, he would never drop out because that would be voting against himself. But do you know someone, and to fix the system, you need somebody who's willing to vote against himself to fix the system, because this hierarchy of wealth, money and power has reached an apex in which those who are at the top of the apex are, none of them have ever in their life voted against themselves. So one more or less, it's not going to make a difference. If Trump or Harris, neither one has ever voted for themselves in their life, against themselves because of some principles. Fuck no. They're both creatures of the system with no guilt. When I say no guilt, that's on purpose. Uh, you know who often has voted against himself? The Kennedy family. Uh, why? Because not only the Kennedy family has a white guilt issue, they have a rich guilt issue. Started from how the family, you know, took a gamble. Their forefather took a gamble, and when the stock market crashed, he went and apparently purchased a lot. You know, chutzpah, uh, timing, whatever you want to call it, and showing interest, showing. I mean, if you buy stocks after a crash, during a crash, and after a crash, then when everybody has given up, you're the only one rooting for Uncle Sam. That kind of makes you a patriot. If you go in when nobody is willing to touch the shit, and you go in and you buy the shit, that shows some patriotism. Uh, but anyway, they got rich, and they already were advantage being white. Then they got rich. The family got rich. Although I don't think there was anything wrong with the way they got rich, but I believe they have a conscience. They have a rich conscience, a rich guilt conscience. Not only they have a white guilt conscience, they have a rich guilt conscience, familiarly. And it has shown itself this last time in Mr. Kennedy. And that's why I said should be the only candidate, because he's with that rich guilt conscience that he has. He's the only one that can, as you said, go tough on the corporations. Trump is a corporate owner. Do you ever see Trump really going tough on corporations? Or if not, then what's the point of winning if your winner is I remember the joke about the caricature joke about the wolf talking, the wolf on the stage telling the sheep in the audience that I will become vegetarian when I win the election. That's like asking Trump that okay, promise them you will break up the corporations and you will subdue the corporations, from GE and Boeing and blah blah blah, and break them up into very small pieces and blah blah. Go tough on corporations. Bring a whole bunch of antitrust suits and break them up. To 500 member company period. This is going tough. This is going tough. But do you see Trump doing it? All the people he meets, 23 hours a day, well, minus the sleeping and the this and that and extracurricular activity, all the people that he meets in his regular day, they're all rich, much richer than him. He's their club owner. That's where the rich people get together. I mean, imagine a club owner who doesn't want to entertain his guests or say good stuff about his guests and make profit for his guests. So he goes from his own home to the White House. That's all he's going to be, entertaining his guests who just happen to be rich people, being in favor of his guests who just happen to be other rich people, people richer than him. And going against them, it's like going against yourself. It's like shutting down your club. It's like you going against the people who attend your club. Who the fuck wants to do that? That's voting against themselves. Not Harris nor Trump. Neither one will ever vote against themselves. Always for self. Why do I want to bother my customers? Trump the salesman. Trump the salesman voting against himself. He will never. And what the thing that needs to be done at this level, at this point in capitalism, in imperial capitalism, with the format of East India Company, uh, Halliburton, East India Company, extract and bring war and extract and bring war and you know grab wealth and bring more war to any region, just whatever. So my point is this, that what you have in Kennedy, this is when I said, if Trump wants to be really patriotic, he has to actually go out in favor of Kennedy. And you know what? How that's the only way a third party candidate will work at this point. The only way a third party candidate will work in the two-party system is if one of the candidates of the major parties, after winning everything and being at the top, goes out in favor of a third party candidate. Just withdraws and says, I'm withdrawing in favor of him, and if even you don't allow this motherfucker to sign his name up in some states, then you're going to have a one-party system. That's what I'm saying. That's the only way Kennedy can win, is if Trump pulls out and endorses Kennedy. And that's the real solution. And that's, again, goes back to if Trump is willing to vote against himself. He will never. I mean, I'm beside a miracle. He will never go out in favor of Kennedy, because that would be the first step in a life of, in a positive life, voting against oneself. Under normal circumstances, nobody wants to vote against themselves. So, but you're considered enlightened if you vote against yourself in favor of other people. That means you stand on principle, not just interest. You see, everybody is after interest. Few are based on principle, because if you're based on some kind of fucking principle, from time to time you have to vote against yourself. Because principles, means principles, that you can't move the bracket and say Guantanamo Bay, that's in our interest to keep them there. We do have the Magna Carta, but there are some places Magna Carta doesn't apply. We find these islands all over Pacific and Atlantic, and over those places it doesn't apply. Yeah, you can do that. Anyway, my point is this. Because of the guilty conscience of the Kennedy family, and thank God of that they have had not only the white guilty conscience, but the rich guilty conscience. Not many rich people get that kind of conscience. So that guilt, not many rich people get that guilt. They all have conscience, but they're walking around, so obviously there must be conscience, but the guilt doesn't come usually with it, unless the scars are deep. So, and here is again his whole life is a story of voting against yourself. Remember, he is rich, he is part of the elite, but him and his family, many of them have voted against themselves. He's the last one of the family at this point in time. There may be others after him, but he has gone so far of voting against himself that all his family has walked away from him. Are you kidding me? How I mean, people who don't want to vote against themselves, they love their family. They don't do anything to piss off the family, because they love themselves, and they don't want to shit where they eat. But if you are so motivated that you're willing to shit where you eat, go against your family for principles, I think you're worth a try. I think you're worth a try. If you're willing to go against your family because of your principles, you see shit happening that shouldn't be happening, and you say, "Oh, you know what? I'm willing to go against my family, but I gotta stand up for a principle." Kennedy has been doing this. The bear story, the corpse of a bear story. Don't tell me that from time to time you're not, you know, you haven't passed the corpse in the highway of an animal that you know you just was run over. It's fresh meat. Don't tell me you're not tempted, because you know I was, for a time I was in a very living, traveling between through a very swampy area, and many times I've noticed that crocodiles, oh no, sorry, alligators who have been passing from swamp to swamp through the highways that crisscross these swamps. Many times you see alligators who have been hit, but in fact, most of the times that you do see that, you see their tail missing. It's because apparently most of the alligators' meat is in the tail, so if they get hit with a car, there is more than a few people who are willing to stop, and they do have the necessary tools to remove the tail and get on their way. So many people do this, and I'm sure, why not? But because it's a waste of resource, I think you actually should be advocating for, better use of resources, because letting the animal to go to waste is a waste of resources. My point is this, and yeah, regarding the worms and it's wild meat, yes, you always cook wild meat to the nth degree. You never do wild meat undercooked or maybe cooked. You put wild meat in a pressure cooker and then cook it in a pressure cooker, because you want to make sure through heat and pressure anything, absolutely anything live will go away because of the heat and the pressure. Anyway, my point is this. So I know he knows all of this. He is willing to step out of the line. He's willing to turn his back to his upper class, upper echelon upbringing, and saying, I try to use all the resources I come across. Do you mind? I think this is his attitude. And I think it's a way of turning your back for him. It's a way of for me. It's I'm endorsing my class. If I pick up roadkill, I'm endorsing my class. For him, he picks up roadkill. He's turning his back to his class, his upper echelon society people. So that's voting against yourself. Many Kennedys have done so. It's a great tradition. Voting against yourself means you have principles. If you vote against yourself, it means you have principles. Do I see Trump doing it? No. Should he? Yes. Will Kennedy make a better president than either Harris or Trump? Of course he will. If your democracy is supposed to work, this is of the three candidates the best one that is not of the system, by the system, for the system. When I say system, I mean the rich and the bureaucrats who are together. The rich even want less regulations so they can make more money and abuse their employees and customers alike more. Tips? The conversation has come to they're both for tips. Are you fucking kidding me? Tips. We should not tax tips. I'm sorry, the employer should pay now a living wage to his employee, so I don't have to compensate. I was in Little Caesars purchasing a pizza, and the lady, the screen came up, okay, this is the price of your pizza and how much the tip. I'm delivering the pizza to myself and I have to leave a tip. What does it take for me not to pay a tip? Do I have to take it out of the oven? Show me the oven. I will take it out. What part of this includes, what part of the livelihood of your employees is should be concerned of mine? Whether it's taxed or not, that's not the problem. The problem is employers are, trying to incentivize movement. It's like employees are not moving fast enough. We need a tipping system to get these motherfuckers moving fast. Because it's not a tipping system, she will only take care of two tables. But if it's a tipping system, she will run her little butt off and serve five tables. Real fast, real quick. That's how we like our employees. No healthcare, no welfare, but quick. Sorry, no education. Quick. We want them quick. Pretty soon, Mr. Musk is going to program these quick robots. So my point is this, that no, there is no way Trump will drop out in favor of Kennedy. That would be the ideal situation. That would be how you could show that your democracy works. I mean, do you remember the QAnon people? They actually compared Trump to a Kennedy. Well, why go with the Elvis look-alike if you fucking have Elvis? Really? You want to go for Elvis look-alike? The guy who looks like a guy who will fight the system? Really? Trump? He made his bones in the system. And the more corrupt it is, it has always been better for the likes of his echelon of people, because the more corrupt the system is, the cheaper it is for you to buy it. When has Trump ever voted against himself? No, forget about the presidential period, because I don't, nobody wants to go through that shit show. But before that, when has Trump ever voted against his own interests? Hasn't, because I haven't. Because, except what I'm doing now. Except what I'm doing now, I have never voted against myself. Some other instances, yes, also based on some principles, I have voted against myself. But that's it. If you want to follow principles, from time to time you have to vote against yourself. And you say, yeah, that was me. You see what I mean? State that you're wrong. And Trump always goes out of his way to prove that how he's right and everybody else is wrong. Do you ever see Trump voting against himself? And this whole idea of make America great again, I think it's mostly make America rich again. This is that message. It's not about race, and it's about make America rich again, motherfucker. We were rich. What happened? I think that's the real thing. But the reality is that, and Trump is selling the message that yes, I can make everybody rich. Just magic. You know what everybody rich means? Means inflation. When, out of, by just printing money, when you make everybody want to pretend that you're making everybody rich, that creates inflation. That you can make everybody If you go the communism way, you can make everybody poor, but what Trump is promising, you can't really make everybody rich. You just can't. So that's, you can go and make everybody poor, but you cannot make everybody rich. Just doesn't, the math doesn't work out. One of the main reasons that North America got rich after World War II is because everybody else was turned into dust. Literally, the Japanese first had to build the buildings that built the cars. They had to start from they had to start from scratch. So my point is this: that I know. I mean, his decisions on Palestine, if he, you can trust a guy who's in the business of voting against himself from time to time. You can trust that guy because and all these stories about, again, him barefoot, walking barefoot in some dirty places. Again, that's a vote for against himself. I mean, you have DJ Khaled. The other day I saw DJ Khaled. There was a short video of him being carried by his bodyguards. Carried, a big, hefty guy being carried by two bigger guys from his Rolls Royce to the stage that he was going to sing, because he didn't want his Nikes to be messed up with the sand that he's supposed to, sand or dirt that he's supposed to walk to from his Rolls Royce to the stage. So he just got lifted up like a child and taken from his car to his stage. That's DJ Khaled. I don't know DJ Khaled, but that's pretty new money, nouveau-riche, and no guilt is attached to this money. So apparently he's Palestinian, but he hasn't said shit about hasn't said shit about there's the situation in his homeland, and because he doesn't want to vote against himself. That's another quality of nouveau-riche, the newly rich people. They never vote against themselves because the money is new. It smells good. They never vote against themselves. They can pretend to say, no, after election I'm going to be a herbivore, but they're a carnivore because, that smell of blood is fresh, that smell of money is fresh in the family, so it is what it is. He cares more about his shoes than 40,000 people on the other side of the planet. Anyway, but Trump is also nouveau-riche. He's new money. He also never voted against himself. Will never vote against himself because that's insanity, as far as he's concerned. You will never see him walking barefoot. Are you fucking kidding me? That's something that people who want to break themselves, want to turn their back against their class, against their interests, against their and that's exactly the kind of person you want at the top, because people who want to get the top or are at the top, they want to keep themselves there. They don't want to move down. Are you fucking kidding me? The whole Indian system is the caste system of India is based on no, not only I'm at the top, I'm going to make it so that anybody coming after me with this last name, they also have to be at the top because we are of the higher caste. Because one of us reached the top, then after one, and anybody left behind from him should stay at the top. That's Trump. That's Harris. She has worked her way to the top of the pyramid. Will she be a good leader? Uh, the system, the system makes decisions. In case of Trump, the rich people are going to make decisions, and in case of Harris, the bureaucrats are going to make decisions. And I'm not sure, you know, people who are going to get killed, any of them will actually, matter in any of these equations, not from the left or the right. Just people who, didn't make it, weren't made of right stuff. Apparently, the Palestinians are not made of the right stuff. So they didn't make it past 21st century. So that's the problem with the system. Both the rich people and the bureaucrats, and poor people who are, by saying make America great again, they mean they make America rich again, which also probably means that make me rich again. I used to be rich. What happened? I bought my house for like $20,000, and I was making $500 a month or $1,000 a month, and I bought the house for $20,000. I paid all cash. What happened? They handed out a lot of cash, not to everybody, but to very few people. And this is what capitalism brings you. This is the point in which somebody who is comfortable voting against themselves, like Kennedy, this is the point at which he can come in and break up all the corporations. Just pass regulation, convince the Congress, do something, force the system to take a good look at itself and turn its back against its own interest and break up corporations. I mean, believe me, some of these senators and representatives, they rather get one big check and 1,000 fucking small checks. They rather collect 3 big checks from 3, 5, 6 great corporations in their states. They rather get 5, 6 big checks, and because then they only have to, suck 6 dicks. You suck 6 dicks, you get 6 big checks. But if you're, if you have to, you have to deal with thousands of very small companies, then you don't have to suck dick as a politician. You can keep some dignity because there's thousands of dicks, and nobody expects you to suck them because you're a politician. You're not a cocksucker. But that's the thing. This is the problem. Is the corporations? They're too big, all of them. Not just in the digital industry, in all other industries. There's like, you can count them in one hand, the number of corporations which are responsible, which are covering a big area. I mean, the number of, as it's been said often, the number of how many the poultry industry, how many producers are that cover 350 million people or 400 million, or they also have work in Mexico and Canada too, so they cover like 500 million people. It's like they say it's like 3 main poultry processors and 3 main beef processors and 3. When the numbers go that way, it's like 1 main airplane manufacturer, Boeing. That's it. Period. End of the line. And it owns the whole thing from the start to end product, holds the whole production line. It's like Walmart and some of the products that they sell under their own name. They own the whole production line, probably, of that product. So they're not really quality control. If you own the whole process line, you don't want, you're not, and you don't follow, you don't want to vote against self. You let everything almost pass through, because for you to quality control your own product would be, you if you pick on yourself, means you voting against yourself. That doesn't that that's not logical, at least for the nouveau riche. But it does make some kind of logical sense for the old money to vote against themselves, against the rich status from time to time, because they understand that if a poor people revolution takes place, they may lose everything. So they have some kind of foresight. The old money has some kind of foresight that, hey, you need to, from time to time, you need to break up capitalism without going to war. You need to break up capitalism, break up all the corporations, so not one man or one board has control of every step of production in any field, be it aviation, be it retail, be it anything. That's voting against oneself. That's voting against one's class. Kennedy will do it every day. But you're saying that which is needed at this point in capitalism, in Western civilization. That's voting to break up. And Kennedy doesn't mind not being friends with the heads of these corporations. Just like he didn't mind not being in speaking term with his family when they turned their back on him. He didn't mind any of it. That means voting against oneself. That means this is a person you can trust. Trump has never voted against himself. Trump has never voted against his best customers. His best customers are people who attend Mar-a-Lago. Voting against, and again, the idea of not everybody can be rich. No, he's selling the idea of, yes, I will make every one of you rich. Just not possible. What are you talking about? The only way you can attain, at least go to, is that's an infinity that cannot be achieved. I'm going to make everybody rich. That's an infinity that cannot be achieved. The only way to go towards that infinity is to say that the difference between the CEO of a company and the lowest paid person on the company cannot be more than 20 times. What does that mean? That means either Jeff Bezos has to give away all his profits, just give it away, or not own it in the first place. That means break Amazon, for example, Amazon up to 5,000 little small companies, and tell nobody can own more than 500 employees or robots. You can have 250 employees and 250 robots. Something around those lines. That's the only way you can keep some kind of prevent economic gaps or canyons developing in the society, so nobody really feels poor. It's not about really being poor. A lot when it comes to education, healthcare, and housing, yes, it is about being poor. But after that, if these are provided, as I said before, either pay the people enough so they can educate their own children, or you have to educate their children for free. Good education, not spend the education money on warfare, and then whatever is left over, you can put it in education, which seems to be the idea. Even for Trump, the idea is defense is more important than education, housing, and healthcare. Why? Why is defense is more important than education, housing, and healthcare? Does it make sense? Your tribe is, imagine an Indian tribe who for some reason have lost their tents, whatever they call them. Imagine you don't have those tents. You're living in an Indian tribe. You for some reason You lost your tent through a tornado. Now you don't have a tent, nowhere for your people, if they're sick, to have shelter under. Your medicine man has lost his medicine, and your people, your children cannot learn because, you know, that that little board that they had, place where they taught each other things, that has been taken away by a tornado. So you don't have none of these, but then for some reason you start attacking other tribes around you, and you're like, no, we really don't need shelter or education or healthcare. We really don't need that. We need to attack that tribe. They're bad, and the other one is bad, and the other. You're driving your tribesmen ragged. You're running your tribesmen ragged, not providing them any services, but willing, able, and trigger happy in order to attack people who are getting out of line. That's, you know, that's the way the system has gone, and both left and right, Trump and Harris, both of them are not, you know, they see a benefit in this because they're friends, or they want to be friends with people who are benefiting from this because those people are very rich, obviously. So they want to get to know them. You're telling me if, you know, Mrs. Harris is invited and adored by very rich people, does that make Mrs. Harris feel bad or feel ashamed? No, no, she likes being liked by rich people, and so is Trump. He has an entertainment place for rich people. Trump loves to hang around with rich people, and will never, you know, has likes to entertain rich people at the highest class, with the best, in the best settings, in the most beautiful settings, in the most. I mean, I understand his grandfather was a was, it's in his history. Don't blame me. It's in, his grandfather used to be a brothel owner way back in I don't know, Montana, California, Oregon. He used to own brothel, bar slash brothel. Same thing we see in Western movies. So Mar-a-Lago is kind of returning back to one's roots. He will never. There is nothing wrong. I love to own a brothel. I don't own one, but you know, for me, people in my class, a brothel would be, you know, a step up to owning a brothel. But for rich people, you know, the real rich people, no, they rather visit a brothel than own one. And the brothel owner's job is to please his customers, and happen to be rich people. And if you know that you can never make everybody rich, you can decrease the wealth gap by breaking up corporations and passing a law that the CEO cannot make more than 20 times his lowest paid employee. In that way, but will Trump ever do that? Will Trump put a limit on higher income? You cannot make everybody rich. And if you go towards communism, you will make everybody poor. The only way to achieve what you want to achieve, that not too much wealth gap, so not many people, 99% don't feel poor, aren't poor and don't feel poor, is if you reduce the income gap by force, by laws. And no CEO can make 20 times more than his lowest paid employee, 30 times, 50 times, no more. But do you see Trump putting a higher income chap on his friends in Mar-a-Lago. No, I don't see that. Do I see Kennedy putting an income cap? I will, and believe me, income cap doesn't mean communism. If you're if you're forced to not be able to make more than $20 million a year, and that's because your lowest paid employee is only making $1 million a year, there's still a gap. You can do a lot of things that your employee can't because you're making 20 times his income. But anything more than that is just insanity. I see Kennedy putting a cap on the highest income. So relatively everybody's life will lift up. There's without creating inflation. Inflation comes if is because you don't put a cap on the highest incomes, then you try to give money handout to the lowest incomes. The money finds its way up to the highest income. This money over time, a few years, finds all this money to the top. Now the top guys can purchase twice what they were able to purchase last year because they got double the money, but everybody is again still poor. Back to the poorhouse because they spend all the money that you gave them. You can't. You just create inflation. The only way you can make everybody feel rich is put it highest income cap. And that's not communism. That's not communism. You're saying you can own your company. The government is not going to take it over. No socialist is going to take it. You can own your company, but your company cannot have more than 500 employees. And you cannot make 20 times more than your night watchman. If you own a company, you have some employees. So if you're willing to pay yourself, if you're willing to pay your night watchman $1 million a month, you can make 20, no more. That's the only way this is possible. Kennedy will do it. Kennedy will put an income gap. He has the rich guilt. And he doesn't mind losing rich friends. He's already lost most of them. I don't see Trump doing that. And don't tell me, he's going to become vegetarian after election. And of course, Harris will never do that. She's a product of corporations. Because she's a product of the bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy is being supported by corporations. That's why we know what we know, that time and time again, the CIA went to war with local governments which were at odds with profit margins of Uncle Sam's corporations. Every time Uncle Sam's corporations' bottom line profit margins were being threatened by some savages in some shithole, every time that happened or is happening, every time that happens, the CIA and the Pentagon, they go in to assert the rights of Uncle Sam's corporations and tell the natives that, Uncle Sam's corporations have the rights and the natives don't. Every time and time again. So, corporations and big money, corporations and big money, rich individuals and rich corporations, and the bureaucrats have always been hand in hand. Bureaucrats in CIA and FBI and Justice Department, they always have seen eye to eye. There's no shame about it. And this has reached this level. I think, Kennedy is the solution, and he has already shown many times in his life that he's willing to turn his back against his class and do the right thing. And he's a vegetarian in that sense, metaphorically. But you keep telling us, but Trump has told us and kept telling everybody that he likes the working man, the blue collar. He is for the blue collar. But is he? Has he done anything to suggest that he's a vegetarian? Anything? Besides, whatever looks good in front of the camera, shaking hands with Joe the plumber and slapping Jane the plumber in the ass. Beside that, when has ever Trump voted against his and his buddies' interests who belong to the upper echelon of the society? And unfortunately, Elon Musk, being the smartest guy at the table, has a blind spot, and he has an affinity for his own ideas. That's understandable, but a lot of times people start in his situation. People start, if this idea was right and that idea was right and the other idea was right, they kind of start believing the size of their own dick. Sort of like, no, then all my ideas must be right. No, that's what leads to fascism. That's the industrialists, that's the geniuses who backed Hitler because they started believing the size of their own penis. You know, you're genius, yes, but we know what the answer is. The answer is breaking of the corporation, and I'm sorry, it's going to cut into your ownership, cut into your profits. You cannot do great projects, or you cannot take the credit of doing great projects. You can still cooperate and not own the whole fucking business from beginning to end. You can still expect cooperation from these small corporations. They have to cooperate in order to succeed, but just the size, I see Kennedy doing the right thing and breaking them up. I don't see Trump doing that, and I don't see Harris doing that. And at this point, this is the only solution. Besides going to war, the only solution is to break up the large corporations. I see Kennedy doing the right thing and breaking them up. I don't see Trump doing that, or Harris. Voting against one's self-interest or the interest of one's family or interest of one's class because of some principles can happen, but out of deep scars. Trump doesn't have those deep scars. Kennedy family does, and this last Kennedy certainly does. Deep scars makes them fairer because makes them more in touch. Deep scars of self-critique because you're white and rich generation after generation, that becomes your scar. That becomes your guilt, then that affects your judgment to the better, for the better, and you forces you to act based mostly on principle and not just interest.